Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It is a great honor to welcome John Taylor Gatto to our show today. He is the author of the most groundbreaking books about education in the world. The Underground History of American Education, which took the world by storm, dumbing us down, the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling, and I have just completed his new book, Weapons of Mass Instruction, a school teacher's journey through the dark world of compulsory schooling. He is beloved by so many respectable, wise people. Thomas More, who wrote Care of the Soul, Tom Peters, who wrote In Search of Excellence, so many wonderful people. In New York public schools, he served for 30 years as a teacher and was a New York City Teacher of the Year. He is a sought-after speaker who speaks around North America. He's for open sourcing schooling and education. His paradigm in his understanding comes from a deep level of what it means to learn, to fall in love with learning, and what education is really about. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Taylor Gatto to It's Rainmaking Time. Good afternoon.
Great to be with you, Kim.
I have to tell you, when I first began reading your most recent book, Weapons of Mass Instruction, I did not know that I had a bias. As open as I am, I had a bias that was revealed through reading this, that education vis-a-vis compulsory schooling was mandatory and helpful, and that college degrees really helped people. Now, I want to tell you my bias because the learning that took place after this book was profound. I know that many incredible people from all over the world have not been schooled in high school nor college and created new industries, new inventions, new discoveries, new businesses that transformed the world. But I fell under the hypnosis that it was a better thing to be degreed than not degreed, even though I know for a fact that it has nothing to do with success. I believed subconsciously through programming that if you don't have a degree, life becomes harder for you to get work and to create work, etc. So it was really illuminating for me to realize that as open as I thought I was, that I had some programming that was residual from my own education, from my own family, and from ancestral handing down of the last 100 years. Very interesting.
Well, that's been carefully conditioned into all of us for slightly over 100 years. But the next time you have Bill Gates on your show, or Steve Jobs, or Michael Dell, ask them, say, fellas, honestly, how would your life have been improved if you had gone through college and taken a degree? Or the next time you have Ted Turner, who created the only international television channel, CNN, say, Ted, how would you have been better off if you had had 4 years of college? The fellow who created Whole Foods Market.
Oh, yeah, and Kinko's. And then
Kinko's, yes, and they're from right out your way. The Human Genome Project, in case people think it only works for hustlers in business, has two founders, one of whom was home educated on a remote sheep ranch in Western Virginia, following no curriculum whatsoever except what he could convince his three brothers, or they could convince their three brothers to study, and for as long as all four agreed. That was the curriculum of half of the Human Genome Project. It was not science heavy. In fact, it looks to me as if it were science light. And the other half is a California kid from San Diego who cut school about one day out of every two to go surfboarding, and only graduated because the teachers hated him so much that they raised his F average to a D minus to get rid of the bum. He then went on to be a private soldier in Vietnam. I mean, the bottom of the heap. Those two are the Human Genome Project, the foremost scientific project by a country mile in the world today. We've swallowed hook, line, and sinker a kind of secular religion. And let me give the best take on it. It was well-meaning. It was put together by a lot of people who presumed that most human beings were decidedly inferior, and so the word education had no meaning at all. They had to be schooled not to get in the hair of the best stuff. And some of the people who did that, Kim, would just cause your jaw to open. One of the biggest was Charles Darwin. I'm not referring at all to his theory of evolution, but in his second big book, Descent of Man, he said that most of the human race, the closest I can figure, he's talking about 90%, are biologically inferior, so much so that it's hopeless to try to raise them up. And if they intermarry and crossbreed with the good stuff, evolution's going to march backwards. Now, you don't have to take John Gatto's word for this. In every public and school library in California, you will, certainly in every public library, you will find Descent of Man by Charles Darwin, 1871, but kept continuously in print. And he'll just tell you how inferior everybody is. Just as John Calvin did religiously, or a bunch of German psychologists in the 19th century did. I'm clearing my throat scientifically. Or as the great, quote, liberal philosopher Spinoza said in 1690 that almost all the human race is murderously irrational, and we have to have universal schooling that didn't, of course, exist at the time in order to fill their heads with nonsense so that they'll be ineffective. We'll divide them from one another through competition, he said. I mean, this is amazing stuff that's right under everybody's nose. The libraries are full of it. If the schools actually bothered to teach people how to read, I think this would be much better known.
I'll have to tell you that I had to suspend my initial impression, knowing really not a lot about you. I did not read Dumbing Us Down or The Underground History of American Education. I began with Weapons of Mass Instruction. And at first, I had to get through the sentiment that imbues you as you're describing the school system and giving example after example of individuals in high places who've either never been to college, never graduated, and possibly never graduated high school. I thought it was interesting. Franklin Roosevelt, John Kerry, George Bush, Al Gore, Dick Cheney, Lou Wasserman from MCA. I mean, you can really go on, but it's shocking that so many of us have been hypnotized to assume and to take on and to have integrated the belief that if you don't have a college degree, you're in trouble throughout your life. It's like you're marred.
Right.
And yet the very opposite has happened. People have become more creative, more enterprising, more responsible, more self-reliant. The opposite is actually true when you look at the evidence. But I think also so many of us are afraid to go another route. Like I remember as a young child when homeschooling was discussed, I remember my mom saying to me, I think it's better for socializing you to go to a regular school where you can interact, and if you have problems with kids, you can work it out, and you won't have that opportunity if you're homeschooled. So you'll develop social skills you wouldn't have otherwise. That was the thinking, or at least that was the brainwashing of the time, and it seemed to make sense on a certain level. Do you